here. I'm actually located in Ocean City, but I am in a private room to have this virtual discussion with you. So I wasn't sure if you received um, the workbook that accompanies this, but just in case, I don't know if the producers have it to put it in chat, and I'll wait for you to respond.
I do not have it.
Do not have it. All right. So, when we are in um the technical world, technology monsters are always out to get us. So, you don't have it, so I hope that you're able to take notes, and that will definitely impact one of our activities. So hopefully you can engage with it in this conversation using the chat. We had an activity and I might be able to share it in a different way. So let me just think through that as we go forward. So this is cultivating a self safe and healthy culture. Extensive research has revealed that the number one predictor of team effectiveness is psychological safety, which explains why so much talk and buzz and a lot of information, and there's a lot of talk about psychological safety, and there is a demand to build the skills on how to elevate it as things are changing in our world. So during this session, you are going to be able to explore some of the concepts. This is really, you're getting a really, really high level view of it. This is actually a day long course. However, you're going to get the best 1 hour possible, that I can pack everything I can into this 1 hour session to help you to develop a culture that exhibits psychological safety traits and also get a few skills to minimize errors and unleash the talent within your organization. So let me in chat. Let's see if I do have the link. Hopefully you'll be able to access the workbook. So I put it in chat for you. All right, so let's keep moving. So this is what we're covering today. We're going to unpack this concept of psychological safety, which can be kind of rather complex. However, I am one of my superpowers is to make the complex more simple. So we're going to talk about what psychological safety is, what it's not. We'll review a few principles and concepts from Gustavo Rossetti, who is the founder of Fearless Culture, who I learned from. Also from Amy Edmonston, who is a Harvard Business School professor, and Dr. Timothy Clark, who is the author of the 4 stages of psychological safety. So we will go through that. We'll look at a little bit on how psychological safety impacts teams, explore ways that the organization can elevate it, and then end with you sharing a few ways. We'll do a quick chat storm, as we say, to elevate psychological safety in the workplace. So let's just start with quick. I want to know who is in the virtual room, just to get an idea of who's here and what does psychological safety mean to you. What does psychological safety mean to you? Because as humans, we crave this connection, have a need to belong, and when we work as a team, the interaction can satisfy this deep need to connect and belong. So this interaction can be satisfying, strengthening, but at the same time, it can have the opposite effect and be negative and destructive if we're not careful, if we don't pay close attention to what's going on with psychological safety. So I didn't see anybody type anything in the chat. Are the participants able to type in chat?
You can go ahead and type it in the
Okay.
Q&A.
In the Q&A. Okay. Awesome.
Let's see, I'm
So
looking to see if we have
I
any
won't be able.
responses.
Okay, so I'll just keep moving since we have just a little bit of time to spend together. So let me just hold on one second. So, psychological safety is the foundation of high performing teams and is one of the essential building blocks of culture. So, there's 10 building blocks of culture. Psychological safety is just one. However, it creates a space where people feel secure and safe to speak up, be themselves, and experiment. So, psychological safety is a shared belief that the team is safe for interpersonal risk taking. People are not afraid of negative consequences like being criticized, ignored, laughed at, or punished. And high performing teams need psychological safety because when people feel accepted and respected, they bring their best selves to work. So it is so essential to a team's success is being psychologically safe. So let's unpack this concept of psychological safety by discussing what it is, what it's not, and how it relates to culture. So, although the true origins of psychological safety came about in the 1800s, believe it or not, came about when we were talking about being health and safety in the workplace in the 1800s. But I'm not going all the way back to the 1800s. I want to briefly just discuss modern day concepts that relate to psychological safety. So I'll start with Amy Edmonston, who is the professor at Harvard Business School and documented that companies with a trusting workplace were more likely to perform better. So this is research based that why we need to really pay close attention to psychological safety. Her findings were further supported by a much later study, by a study which you might be familiar with, Google's Project Aristotle, which spent 3 years studying 180 teams to find out what would build a perfect team. Now, we know there's no such thing as a perfect team. However, what are those things that the best performing teams do? And this study established that leading component that these teams, what made them successful was psychological safety. So Google describes it in this way, and this is a quote: in a team with high psychological safety, teammates feel safe to take risks around their team members. They feel confident that no one on the team will embarrass or punish anyone else for admitting a mistake, asking a question, or offering a new idea. So Google has also done research on 180 teams. And that takes us to 2020, where Dr. Timothy Clark, who is an Oxford University trained social scientist, he studied and researched organizational culture, psychological safety, and cultural change and identified 4 stages of psychological safety. So I just want to take a moment just to um, see what those 4 levels of psychological safety look like. This is a graphic that I created on Dr. Clark's 4 stages of psychological safety. And let's see, I can also put this link in the chat for you so that you have this handout. All right. So let me just quickly talk you through this because there may be some things on this graphic that you may not be familiar with in terms of or as it relates to psychological safety. Um, the members of a team feel when they feel excluded. So if you look under that bottom rung, if members of a team feel excluded, they will not be able to see that they're being invited to be a part of a team. And there's 2 common reasons behind that why people may feel excluded. They may have low levels of psychological availability, and this means that they don't have the energy or the um, sense of having the emotional, physical, and psychological resources to engage in at a particular moment. So they just may not be available because of things that are going on in their personal lives, maybe in their professional lives, how they feel in the energy that they have to even be present or be included. Then the second reason is for low levels of psychological safety is low psychological meaningfulness. And this is when employees don't feel that their work is valued or their work contributes to the organizational mission. So you may see some similarities between psychological safety and employee engagement. And this is why we need to look at it in a holistic way or a systems view, because they all contribute to how a person shows up to work. So let me hold on one second. So this was the activity that I wanted to share with you. But I'm not sure exactly how to do that here, because you didn't get the handouts ahead of time. And I don't have the link in my slides. So I don't want to stop sharing my slides. And I don't, as luck would have it, I also don't have my my papers in front of me. So we are going to do something different. Let me figure out what I can do to um to make this an engaging session.
Hey, Deidre,
Think
I
yes.
did give everyone the opportunity to talk. So if you want to engage that way, we have about 5 participants. So you
Oh,
could probably engage with conversation if that works for you.
that works perfectly for me. Thank you. So, yes, let's talk about it. Let's talk about what does psychological safety look like? So, for um teams that demonstrate psychological safety, what are some of the things that they do? What are some of the things that teams with high levels of psychological safety do?
And it looks like Lisa is unmuted. Did you want to weigh in, Lisa?
Oh, hi. I'm sorry. I just clicked the button to unmute myself, not to say anything at this moment, but I will answer. um, so I think one thing that teams could do to encourage psychological safety is transparent communication, um, keeping communication open, not speaking behind people's backs or expressing concerns about others' work, but directly with the individuals.
Okay. So those teams that are demonstrating high levels of psychological safety, they don't do those things. They're not talking behind each other's back. They're transparent with their communication and they're open and honest and upfront with what's going on. Is that what I heard?
That is correct.
Thank you, Lisa. All right. Does anybody else want to share? Either what do teams, um, what does it look like? What does psychological safety look like on a team? You can either type it in chat or you can unmute.
I can add another one.
All right.
I've been taking notes. I think also another aspect would be to form a team of collaboration instead of competition. So working with each other to achieve, the goals and the ends as a unit instead of as an individual.
Exactly, Lisa. Yes, it's like you and I are having this conversation. But absolutely, it is they are they're present. They're present. They're able to have engage in conversations. And what was the last thing that you said?
I was just saying that working as a unit in collaboration instead of as an individual in like competition or yeah, just working together to achieve the goals together.
Absolutely. So they're not competing with each other. And if you would
Correct.
allow me to, thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. Allow me to go back to our psychological safety ladder. Here's why that happens. Because when you have psychological safety, there's the different levels. And I didn't go through them because I was thinking we were going to do an activity, but let me just briefly go through them. So the inclusion safety, that means that you are invited just because you're human. There is no prerequisite for you to be included on a team. You show up, there's no you're an outsider or you're new, so you have to do these rituals to become a part of our team. You are included because you're human. There is no requirement to be included. So that's stage one. Then we have stage two, which is the learner safety. And this means that it's safe to engage in the discovery process, to ask questions, experiment, even make mistakes. So you're allowed to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes without being ridiculed or talked down to or criticized, overly criticized for that. Is used as a learning opportunity. The organization is also giving you opportunities to learn. And so that is this exchange, this give and take with learner safety. Then we have contributor safety. And so this is where it starts to get there's you're getting permission to contribute based on where you are, your performance, but you still are able to contribute. So you're encouraged and supported to perform at your best and given the opportunity. And the reason why we say appropriate autonomy is because as you perform better or as you perform, then you're given more latitude or more autonomy. There's some projects where you're not able to be given complete autonomy because of the nature of the work. However, as your performance demonstrates that you're capable of doing it, you're given more opportunities to perform. And then the highest level is the challenger safety. And this is where innovation starts to happen. This is where it's safe to challenge the status quo, to you don't get retribution because you've asked a question or you've challenged someone in their approach. Even the manager, it doesn't matter the role or the level of person, you're safe to ask questions that are challenging and asking, why are we doing things this way? And you're not looked upon as a troublemaker or someone that's always asking a question and doesn't want to participate. No, you're challenging it so that we can do better and have better results. So, are there any questions about that, about the four levels of psychological safety? Because that goes into what Lisa was saying. The reason why we're not competing is because we are trying to all collaborate and come up with the best result. We're a team. We're working together. We challenge each other, but we're also working together as a unit. I don't see any questions. All right, so let's keep moving. So let me jump ahead to what psychological safety is, what it is, or what it's not about. So now that you have an idea of what psychological safety is, let's consider some things that it's not. And let me click here. So it's not about being nice. Let me start there. Not about being nice. And some people think that psychological safety is we all, say nice things and we're always agreeing with each other. Well, as I just described, challenging the status quo is we may not agree. We may have passionate debate. And this is where it's not just about being nice. You have to be respectful. But if anything, it's about disagreeing with each other. And it provides, if we do it productively, then we'll promote learning and improvement. So it's not about being nice. It's not dependent on personalities. So it's not dependent on the personality of a single individual. It's about the climate in the team. It's about how people relate to each other and about how they feel as part of the team or being a part of the team. So it's not based on one particular person. People think that a person can give you psychological safety. No, you can have a relationship with people. You can have trust, and we'll talk about trust a little bit. But trust is something between two people or an interpersonal relationship between two people. There's psychological safety is more about the organization. And we'll dive a little bit deeper into that in a second. And it's also not about lowering performance standards. People think that, well, we're giving psychological safety, then we're lowering the performance standards. No, it's not about that. Even if one is able to admit making a mistake, it doesn't mean that you should not care about the quality of the work product or the quality of the performance of the team. And we'll talk about that a little later. Actually, I'm not sure if we're talking about that in this session because, as I said, this is a day-long session that we're picking up some nuggets in an hour. Anybody have any questions so far about what psychological safety is not and what it is? Any questions? All right, so let's keep moving.
And Deidre, I just did give, I think, Lisa and Shakima the access to talk as well. So if anybody wants to unmute, feel free, go right ahead and weigh in on the psychological safety.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And don't feel like you're interrupting me. Jump right in if you have a question. You can type it in chat or you can unmute. No questions? Okay. So we talked a little bit, we skimmed a little bit over what psychological safety is, but I want to ask you specifically, what should a person in a psychologically safe team be able to do? And you can type that in chat or you can unmute. What should they be able to do? Any thoughts around that? We're quiet this morning. We're still waking up. Well, I'll tell you so we can keep moving. What are they able to do? So here's what they're able to do. They're able to give and receive feedback. I'll give you a chance to look these over. I don't like to read to people when you can read for yourself. And then you let me know what questions you have. All right. Any questions? So I'm asking you a question. If these are the things that make people feel psychologically safe, why do we not do them? Why are these things not necessarily happening? Any thoughts around that? That is a great question. I'm not sure if people can. Okay, so they can see chat. All right.
And it looks like Dominique and Shakima have both unmuted as well. So
Well, let's hear out Dominique and then Shakima. Is there a question? Question, comment?
Dominique or Shakima?
All right.
Shakima?
I am not hearing anything.
No.
Okay. So we'll just keep moving. All right. So this is why people do not speak up. These are some reasons, some of the reasons why, the main reasons why people don't speak up. The first one is fear. And with fear, some people feel that a real sense of anxiety that speaking up can cause in certain people. When speaking up, people become exposed and vulnerable. And there are many reasons why a person may not may fear speaking up. For example, they may fear that they might lose their job, or they might be losing status, or of not being considered for a future promotion. Fear of losing face, or appearing to be ignorant or negative or intrusive or incompetent. Fear of being attacked or vilified or bullied. And so, without psychological safety, fear of exposing themselves by speaking up is real and can be stressful. And fear is also contagious, which means on a team, if people have witnessed somebody else suffering in the past as a result of speaking up, they are more likely, or very unlikely, to feel comfortable to be the ones to speak up the next time. So people are watching how when someone speaks up, what is the reaction? What happens? What are the consequences?
And
And so,
Deidre,
yes,
Shakima mentioned in the Q&A the fear of not being liked. So that is one reason they might be afraid to speak up.
absolutely, absolutely. Fear of not being right. So when teams have that level 2 psychological safety, that feeling the safe to learn, then you're not afraid to be right. I mean, not be right. You're not afraid to make mistakes or say something that may be wrong that needs to be corrected. And so those teams that demonstrate that they've achieved level 2, they don't have that fear. So thank you. All right. So the second main reason is resignation. And if people know that their opinions don't matter and nothing will change, no matter what they say, they will become resigned to silence. They will think that this is the way that it is, and there's nothing they can do to change it. So even if they witness errors that could be avoided or think of a way to improve a process, they will never raise that issue because they don't think it matters. And this is why it's important to make staff feel, or employees feel, not only that it's safe for them to speak up, but also that their ideas are appreciated and valued. And then we have the third reason, which is the need to belong. As I mentioned before, humans are social beings, and we want to belong and be accepted by our groups or the groups that we're in. So, if speaking up is not encouraged, a person may avoid doing so, as they don't want to be seen as someone who goes against other people. They don't want to be seen as that troublemaker. But those organizations that have achieved higher levels of psychological safety, they don't have that. People aren't seen that way when they challenge the status quo. Remember, that's the level 4. So, all of these factors are influenced by a manager's attitude, influenced by their attitude. And the manager is key to driving psychological safety. So if you're in a supervisory role or you're developing managers, then we need to make sure that they know how to create psychologically safe spaces, because their role is key to influencing their team. And this is because psychological safety is a group dynamic, and staff members allow each other to feel psychologically safe. So the manager, being the person with the most positional power, is the one who should initiate the process and model the behaviors of psychological safety. And that's why we have to make sure that our leadership development programs, they include these elements and behaviors, then develop skills so that managers can model psychologically safe spaces and create them.
Deidre, we do have a question from Shakima.
Yay.
For a new manager on a team, how long does it take to develop psychological safety?
Ooh. So there's a lot that is packed into that, because it depends on what the current culture is within within that team. because each organization has a culture and then there's subcultures. So depending on what level that team is at, if they're already at a level 4, then it'll be easier for a new manager to come in and navigate their space and figure out what's going on and get people to challenge them and help to onboard them. However, if a team has low levels of psychological safety, it is going to be difficult even for the team to establish that level 1 because they're not even included into the group. They're not brought in. Remember, you're just included because you're human. You shouldn't have to do anything to be included when you have level 1 psychological safety. So I hope I answered your question that it really depends on what level your team is at in terms of how long it takes, because one person can't establish psychological safety. Even if it is the manager, remember they're influencing it. And if they're new, they're coming in as a new person. So they have to assess what's going on and see how to navigate. All right. And please continue to ask questions. So let's talk about the difference between the difference between trust and some of these factors that impact or relate to psychological safety. Because people, remember I said, confuse or conflate trust and psychological safety. So the first one, trust. Trust is empowerment, work engagement, or perceived support. The focus is on you as an individual. It's about trusting others and about the relationship between you and your work, or between you and the organization you work for. Right? So the focus is on the individual. Then, on the other hand, psychological safety, the focus is on the group dynamic and about how you think other people will react to you or anyone else in the team if they speak up. So, trust is between the individual, psychological safety is how you speak up in a group or how you feel like you belong in the group. Does anybody have any questions about that? Because sometimes the two get confused, trust and psychological safety. Okay.
I don't have any
So
questions in the Q&A or in the chat, and I don't see anyone coming off of mute. So I think you're good.
awesome. Thank you. All right. So let's move into, how do you know? I said with the question that was just asked that you have to know what level of psychological safety you're at in order to determine how to navigate it, especially when you're a new manager. So these are just 2 ways that I'm sharing with you on how to measure psychological safety in the workplace. It'll give you an idea of the areas that you might need to focus on to improve the psychological safety in your organization or on your team. So this first one is the psychological safety ladder canvas. So as a leader of a team, you need to know your team's level of psychological safety. You may think you have a good idea of the levels of that safety, but it can be surprising when you really start to measure it and you learn really where they are. So these are the 2 ways. The first one is the psychological safety canvas. And I have used this one with clients or within organizations and teams. And it has been extremely insightful because most leaders are surprised and enlightened that how their teams view psychological safety. And you walk them through the different questions. This is one of the tools from Gustavo Rossetti in Fearless Culture. And you can download a copy of this psychological safety ladder canvas and use it with your teams. But they respond to the different questions that are listed along the ladder, and then they assess which areas are green, yellow, or red, and then we determine what are we going to do about it. So that just helps you with that. And then the second one is the psychological safety questionnaire. And I believe you have that in your workbooks. It's a tool that you and your staff can use, and you answer questions, you discuss the responses to a series of those questions, and then you determine where there are high levels and low levels of psychological safety. So those are just two tools that you can use. There's lots of others. I actually have an assessment that I can walk teams through. And then there's some other tools that we don't have time to necessarily explore, but one that comes to mind is called the Uncovering the Stinky Fish. And it's also a fearless culture canvas, and it helps to usually I do that, and I'll do this psychological safety ladder canvas, because the uncovering the stinky fish gets people to speak up when they're not able to speak up or don't feel comfortable with speaking up. So there you ask them a series of 4 questions, one of them being, what are the things that people are thinking about but are not saying? What are those things that are in our past that we can't get past? And I can't think of the other two off the top of my head. But it's helping them to bring things to the forefront when you have lower levels of psychological safety. So that's the third tool that I just shared with you. Any questions so far about measuring psychological safety? So this is just another one. These are 4 questions that you can ask to help maybe during one-on-one. So if a supervisor, and you can use this tool, you can teach supervisors how to use this, how to give it to them so that they can use it during their one-on-ones, because they should be encouraging the team to share feedback, whether they're how do they feel? How are they experiencing the organization? Do they feel included? Are they being honest about making mistakes? So this kind of gets to, are they fearful? What's going on with the person individually? You could also use this in help with HR in terms of stay interviews. So supervisors can, instead of having exit interviews, you want to keep your high performers and your valued employees from leaving. You have these stay interviews just to see what's going on, checking the pulse of your team. So just some additional tools to help you. So let's take, this is the last part where we're looking at some methods. How do we apply psychological safety in the workplace? So let's just unpack that a bit. Creating psychological safety is an ongoing function of leadership. It is not a one and done. It is something that is ongoing. It requires a clear framework for ways of working as a team. And this is just a simple 3-step structure to elevate psychological safety on your team. And I'll walk you through them. The first one is setting the stage. And there are various things that you can do to set the stage for psychological safety and creating that safe workplace. The first one is set expectations about failure with reference to complexity and innovation. So in every organization, there are different types of work in teams and of complexity and innovation. Some tasks are routine and part of what we call a blueprint. So, for example, building something in a factory is a process that has been tested and implemented, and it is now routine. There's still space for adjustments in this type work, but most of it should not present any big surprises. So other parts of the job are completely innovative, such as coming up with a completely new product. And between the two extremes of blueprint and innovation, there's a continuum. So managers and organizations should make it clear to the team. Actually, the managers should make it clear to the team where in the continuum the team is working, because this allows you, remember I said in the level 3 contributor safety is where you judge the level of autonomy you're giving based on where the employee is. Then we emphasize the purpose of the work. This means to motivate people by reminding them why what they do is important, and remind the staff that their work has a purpose. Because remember, we want to get above that bottom rung, which is psychological meaningfulness. So this is important steps in setting the stage for that. The next one, frame the work as a learning challenge rather than execution. And this means pointing out to the staff that they do this not just mindful repetition or execution of orders. Instead, they're trying to create something new and exciting. And their job is not about executing a series of orders, but to cooperate in creating excellence together. So you're framing the work as learning and growth and contribution rather than you're just doing, menial tasks. Stress that input is required and that is always possible to do better. So this means that it's always possible to improve, even on things that seem good enough. Giving feedback, allowing people to share new ideas and suggestions for improvements is always welcome. And that's something that needs to be reiterated over and over. Then we have acknowledge your own failability. And that means just showing up, being vulnerable, showing your vulnerability. When you make a mistake or you do something that's not as planned, owning it, saying it, letting people know that creates a safe environment. And then step in if a team member talks negatively about each other, and make it clear that negativity will not be tolerated. And that is really important, that we all jump in. We either call in or call out behaviors that are disruptive or not, that do not lend themselves to psychological safety. So let's go to the second one, inviting participation. And this one is practice active listening, which means not just listening to the words, but listening to the meaning and the motion and the feelings behind the words. Being present and focus on the conversation. That means turning off your distractions and staying fully present in the conversation. Ask a lot of open-ended questions. Do we have a question?
Yes, this is Janae, and there is actually a question submitted to the Q&A. It
Okay.
says, if team members evaluate the current level of psychological safety lower than the managers, how do you get them on the same page?
Great question. If the team members rate it lower than the manager, which is every client that I've ever worked with, in helping them to elevate psychological safety and culture, the employees are rating it lower than the managers. And what it does is it gives the manager, here's your proof. Here's what's going on. You're seeing it one way, they're seeing it another way. Now, what are we going to do about that? And so you can't argue with what is in front of you. This is how people feel. And that's their lived experience. That's how they're experiencing the organization or the team. And this is your opportunity. You get buy-in by saying, here's an opportunity for your team to do better. So how are you going to do that? And I'm here to help. So as learning and development professionals, when we show up, I just did the session on performance consulting, that you're more than a trainer, you're actually helping the organization move forward in its performance, helping managers, giving them tools, letting them know that you're there to support them in this realization that we may have some low levels of psychological safety. So I hope I answered your question. All right. Any other questions? Because I do want to leave room for Q&A, and you can ask it. Don't wait until the end if you have a question. All right. So sharing information about your work style, you can do some disc assessments. There's tons of assessments, too many to name right now, but find out what work styles are and preferences. One thing that I like to do is operating instructions or washing instructions, where how do I like to be handled? How do I like to work with people? How do I like to be communicated with? And this can be a team exercise where we all get to know what are our preferences. Don't talk to me before I have coffee. I'm better after I have coffee. Or I like to be handled directly. Be direct with the feedback that you're giving. And then you know where people are and what their preferences are. Okay, so it seems like it's stuck. Uh, okay. The third one is respond appropriately and show appreciation when people respond, offer help, focus on solutions instead of blaming others. That is never a good thing. What can we do about it? Thank you for sharing. What can we do? Also, give rewards. And rewards could be just a thank you or let's celebrate. Let's throw some confetti in the webinar or I mean in our meeting. Let's do something exciting to reward each other for sharing feedback that may not be comfortable. Embrace messengers. Just be someone bringing you information who is challenging the status quo. We don't punish them for doing that. We encourage that because that helps us to see things from a different perspective or see things that's going to help the team move forward and explain the reasoning behind your decisions. Adults want to know why. And when you tell them why, if you don't tell them why, they're going to fill in the blanks with their own story. So make sure that you are giving them the reasons, explaining what's behind that. This is why this happened. This is why I did that. All right. So this is an opportunity for you to share some leadership actions because these are the things that we need to do. And we're all leaders. We all lead from where we are. So I look at everyone as a leader, and especially when you're in learning and development, you have a special role to encourage these behaviors, to build this into your employee development programs, to build this into your leadership programs, and help them to grow together. When we're all learning the same things and the same skills and behaviors, then we can all work in sync and we know what we're doing. So demonstrating engagement, showing understanding, being inclusive in interpersonal settings, and in decision making. These are all parts of your culture, how you make decisions, how you give feedback, how you conduct meetings. What are your norms? What do you reward and punish? Your values, your priorities. Those, remember, I said there's 10 building blocks to culture, and all of these fit into it. Psychological safety is one of them, but it really impacts all the others. So it's important that you focus specifically and make sure that you are creating safe spaces. And then show confidence and conviction. Don't waver, don't waffle. Here's where we are. This is what we are going to create this is a safe space for people to show up. And then making sure that if anybody violates that, that we do something about it, that there's consequences for that. That's how you build a culture of inclusivity and make sure that people feel safe. So, what questions do you have for me? Oops, let me stop sharing.
Yeah, and if you just want to unmute yourself to ask a question, or you can go ahead and type it in the Q&A.
All right. Well, I guess we are on top of psychological safety and culture and no questions. I know I went through it really quickly, and as I said, it's a lot to unpack. We didn't have the space to do the activities. However, I hope you got some learning nuggets and you're able to at least explore more about what psychological safety is and how it is related to culture. All right, I'll turn it back over to the producers.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Are you sure there's no questions out there? Janae, do you have a question?
I think we're
No
just
questions from
oh,
me.
okay. I think we're processing and absorbing and trying to figure out what do we do with this?
Exactly. So our next session from 12:30 to 1:30 Eastern time is going to be a coffee chat with Shanda Adams. So if you click on the guidebook and join that Zoom link, we would love to see you there. It's going to be a little bit of a conversation about some things that are going on and an opportunity for us to be unmuted and chat with one another and be on camera and see each other. So hopefully you can make it to that session as well. And anything else?
No, well, I'm glad that you all are taking advantage of the virtual session, and there's lots of other sessions that are available or have been afforded to you, and take advantage of each one of them and jot down those learning nuggets, those things that you can put into practice. So
Yeah,
thank
I
you.
just want to ask one quick question. Did everyone see the participant guide that was dropped in the chat? They gave a link to the what's it called? Google Drive. You can give me a raised hand or something so I know that you received it. If not, I think we'll be able to send it out to you virtually as well. Shakima, did you have a question?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I didn't see anything in the chat. Did you drop something in there, you said?
Yeah, in the chat. We'll make sure that we can get it sent out. I think when you log into the Zoom account, you do have to put your email address. So I'll make sure that we're able to
Oh,
send
okay.
that. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. All right. Have a wonderful day, everyone. See you for some coffee.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. And we